Hi there, and welcome to this video where we'll highlight AgilePoint's expanded support for ServiceNow. In a previous release, AgilePoint introduced support for ServiceNow at the process layer, and as you're seeing here, have brought in a number of ServiceNow process activities. Going forward in version 10, AgilePoint is happy to unveil support for ServiceNow at the UI layer, in terms of the ability to easily retrieve and display ServiceNow data on an AgilePoint eForm, as well as added support for ServiceNow as an out-of-the-box document repository. So any attachments entered into an AgilePoint eForm can now reside in the ServiceNow platform. Okay, so before we look at the details of eForm level integration with ServiceNow, let's first take a look at the process as a whole. I have a sample application that's going to create a new incident in ServiceNow. And to kick things off, we have an AgilePoint eForm where high-level details about that incident will be recorded, and leverage the create record activity within ServiceNow to create that incident. From here, we have an approval task where additional information can be captured as well as an approval decision. Any data that might have been changed will go ahead and be updated in ServiceNow, and the appropriate approval or rejection notification will be sent. So to get started, let's open up our AgilePoint eForm. Now, there are a number of lookups that have been configured on this form, and let's walk through a few of them. Now let's get started with a simpler lookup. As you're seeing here, we have the caller or the reporting party for our incident. So bringing this up here in edit mode, this is going to be a drop-down list configuration. So moving into configure, you'll see here I have a lookup source that I've configured previously, and we'll just bring it up in edit mode. Now, of course, there are a number of tables within ServiceNow. Because we're capturing the reporting party, we're going against the user table. And because I'd like to return all users within my ServiceNow environment, I have not applied any filter condition. Now moving into the response and opening up the mapper, on the left-hand side, you're going to see the ServiceNow data structure, as well as on the right-hand side, the details for our lookup. Now again, as we mentioned, this is a drop-down list. So you're seeing here, I have a name and value pair. And what I've done is I've gone ahead and mapped all of the fields coming back from ServiceNow accordingly. Okay, so let's close out of this and go into another lookup. Okay, so let's take a look at another drop-down list where we'll have values populated by ServiceNow called incident state. Moving into configure and configuring our lookup, you'll see here in ServiceNow there's the concept of a table called choice. This is a table where all pick list values are being stored. So in my case, my filter condition is when the name is equal to incident and the element is equal to state. And just like you'd seen in our prior lookup scenario, I've mapped all of the fields from ServiceNow over to my name and value pair. So now let's take a look at a third type of lookup. The requirement for my application is based on the caller. We want to retrieve any open or existing incidents and display them in my repeating table down below. So for this, we have an auto lookup. So let's bring this up in edit mode. So for this lookup, we want to retrieve all active incidents for the user submitting the issue. So again, we're going against the incident table. And for the filter condition, I want the caller ID to be equal to the caller name that we established in the prior lookup. And where the state is equal to 1 or 2, which is ServiceNow terminology for an active incident. Now as the next step, we'll go over to response. So here, again, I'm mapping the details coming back from ServiceNow to my repeating structure. Okay, so with that, we can close the configuration. And as a final step here, you'll see that this lookup will be executed when the related field, the caller, changes. Okay, so we've just covered how to configure a drop-down list as well as an auto lookup to display multiple records in a repeating control. So backing out here, having configured this, as I mentioned, there is now an activity to create a new incident in ServiceNow. If you'd like to see more details on this, please do watch our earlier video. It goes through all of the details of things like creating an access token and things of that nature. But as you're seeing here, I've connected to ServiceNow. The table I'd like to write to is incident. And you'll see here how I've mapped all of the details from AgilePoint back into ServiceNow. Now, what comes back here is a record ID, which we'll store in this variable. Okay, so let's go in and configure our next activity. So here, not only will we update any data that might have changed from our first step, we'll also configure a file upload. So as you can see here, I have an attachments field using AgilePoint's file upload control. And moving into configure, you'll see here, I first selected my target repository. So let's bring that up in edit mode. So here I have my access token. The table I'd like to work with is incident, and we're going to use that same variable that we showed you just a moment back. So very straightforward to configure a file attachment as a part of this incident creation process. Okay, so let's move into the runtime demo, and before we kick off the AgilePoint application, I've moved into ServiceNow, where I've run a search against all tickets from the user Able. As you can see here in the top right-hand corner, I can use the ServiceNow interface to register a new incident. We have a unique ID for this incident number, open and close details, as well as various drop-down lists for urgency, as well as the state of the ticket. Now, in addition to the ticket details, as you're seeing here in the top right-hand corner, I can also add an attachment to this incident. But as you're seeing on screen, despite having the caller populated, we're not seeing any of the related tickets submitted by this user. So this is one area where we'll see a huge improvement with the AgilePoint solution. So to that end, let's open up our AgilePoint application. We'll populate our caller, being Able. And in doing so, we're seeing here all of the active tickets that have been submitted by this user. We'll fill in the details of the ticket, indicate this is a hardware issue with high severity because my PC won't turn on. So at this point now, we have a process that's running, and moving into my task list, we'll see a task that's currently sitting with me. Before I open that up, I want to go into the process tracker so we can follow along. We've submitted our incident a second back and inserted that into ServiceNow. We now have an approval task sitting with me where I can make changes to the ticket details as well as attach a document. And we'll quickly move back into ServiceNow to show that the record has been inserted. So here's that record that we've just entered. Moving back into my AgilePoint environment, let's open up the task. And let's insert a document and give our approval. So now, if we move back into our process tracker, you'll see here we have an update incident activity. And shortly thereafter, we'll see the approval notification go out. Our process is now complete, and to validate the details have been inserted into ServiceNow, let's refresh and open up our record where we'll find the attachment. Okay, so that's going to conclude the content for this video. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you soon.